So let's talk about several items that are going to help you grow in your career as a product manager. For example, if you want to grow into something like a product director, a lead product manager, a head of product, or a CPO or VP of product. So there's never one thing that is going to help you get that move in your career. Usually it's going to be a combination of several of them, but I think that I wanted to do this video to talk about some of the most important ones that are out there that are going to help you understand better what you are trying to achieve or be more strategic that is going to help you advance in your career. Hey, if you don't know me, my name is Juan. I am a product director in a tech company in Finland. I have been working in tech companies for now about 20 years and I would like to share my experiences with you. When I started my career as a product manager, I actually really didn't have much of a plan. I just basically wanted to manage a product and that was kind of my career goal at that point, but I wasn't thinking where my career development would take me in the future. So I was a bit naive about how to grow in my position. But at some point I started to think about how can I help the company that I was working at that moment to get better and get more organized. And this, I think, was the first trigger that helped me eventually move forward in my career. So the first one is that you had to think ahead. Most of us believe in the day-to-day and are very tactical in the actions that we are taking. We are concentrating a lot on the next feature that we are building, managing a backlog, having meetings, and all the stuff that are our day-to-day life and our day-to-day work. And they are fine and great and things that always we had to pay attention to, because that's the execution part of product management and it's critical to actually get things right. But sometimes we just get drawn by it. And then we have a problem. We're not thinking ahead. We are not looking at what is our future. What is the future, not for our career, bear in mind, but what is the future of this product that we are building? So what you have to think is, where do you want your product, your team, your company to be in the future? But it's not about just setting up that vision of where you want to be in the future, but it's also about setting the strategy for you to get there step by step. So there's going to be several things. So typical ones for a product manager is going to be, where do you want to see your product being in the future? But there are other things that are going to help a lot also your company. Aspects like organizational ways of working are going to be very important for the company to succeed. Products are great. Products solve users' problems. You also had to be able to get them done. So being able to set up those strategies, to set up some vision of how can we, for example, be more agile in the company. It's very easy for everybody to say that they are agile, especially in tech, because pretty much everybody and their mother does daily stand-ups. But there are realities that just a daily stand-up, just having retro sessions, that doesn't mean that you're agile. So how can you actually bring those principles of agile within your company? That could be for you a vision of how you could help the company do things in a better way. And then you have to set a strategy of how you are going to get there, because talking about being agile is great, but then you actually had to put it into practice. And this is kind of how you're going to build your strategy of how you are going to deploy this agile methodology properly within your company. This can be done in very different ways, but in the end, what you had to concentrate on, as Agile also proposes, you had to always start small and build in increments. So for example, you could decide that you are going to start to have the best practices of Agile within one team and actually be able to adopt that mentality within that team and then help other teams in the later stages to start adopting that mentality, with the goal that on the long term, you actually want to build a company or a bigger team who is actually working cross-functionally and is able to deliver end-to-end products. And most of the product squads out there cannot do. But this is the way that you can build a vision of where you want to be in the future, a strategy, what are the steps that I'm going to have to, or what are the areas that I'm going to have to concentrate a lot to develop in order to get to that vision, and then you will have the tactical items to actually help you deploy that strategy into practice. And the same can be done for your product vision. Where do you want to have your product in the future? You also have to decide what your product is trying to tackle, what the product wants to tackle in the long term, what is the problem that you want to solve to your customers, how you are bringing value to them, and then that's a vision and it's great, but the reality is that you're not going to be able to deliver it probably in a relatively long time, years in many cases. So how can you start delivering small increments that will deliver value to those customers that had that problem and start solving that problem for them at this point. It might be that you are not tackling all the customers that are the potential customers, but little by little you will grow and expand and bring more value to more people, and actually get closer to that vision that you have. And you can see this repeated in many companies. But why is this important? This is the way that you are actually doing something for the company. Think about this. The company also has problems, and you are bringing a solution to those problems. As a product person, you should know and be familiar what bringing solutions to those problems is. So in practice, what you are doing is bringing value to your company. The second thing that is going to help you progressing in your career is that you always have to learn. I know I have talked about this, and probably I start to sound like a broken record, but you always had to focus on learning. Just think about this. If 2 years ago you were doing the same work and in the same way as you are doing it nowadays, you probably had not been learning a lot. And don't get me started if you are doing it the same way like 10 years ago. The reality is that we always have to learn. We always have to stay curious because the world, especially the world of tech, is changing all the time. The ways of working are changing all the time. The technologies are changing all the time. And the competition is moving faster and faster all the time. So if you want to stay relevant and if you want to be able to still bring value to your team, to your business, and to your company, and to your users, you always have to remember to learn. And there are many aspects that you will have to learn when you're thinking about being, for example, a product director or a CPO. You will have to look at a lot of things like how you actually are bringing an ROI, a return on investment, on any action that you are taking. So for example, if you are bringing or building a new feature or a product for your users, how is this going to have an impact on the business that you are running? And yes, a business is built by bringing value to the customers. I'm not saying that. That should be always your first focus, bringing value to your customers, no matter if you are in B2B or in B2C. What you should start to think more and more is how to be more strategic in just those decisions that you are making as a product manager. How can you back up and make a good rationale of the decisions that you are making? Because it's very easy to get dragged into we need a certain feature or a new button to do this, but nobody knows why, what's the result, how is this going to benefit our customer base and even our business. The third item that is going to help you grow in your career is when you are able to start mentoring others. So how you're going to do this? In many cases, some of you are not going to have directly a team, but you can see that there's different ways of mentoring people. Probably you will have some kind of a product team within your company, and those are the ones where you could actually start helping other product managers or other product designers to grow in their career. How can you help them make better decisions? How can you help them be more analytical? How can you help them understanding or focusing always on how to bring value to the customers? How to build a proper set of user personas? There are many things that you probably know already at this point that are going to enable you to mentor and help others growing in their careers. Practical things that you can also do is how can you bring a vision and a strategy to the product squad that you are working with? How can you help mentoring and help in the processes with the people that are working in that product squad? And you can do this by backing up all the decisions that you're making based on the data available, but also by asking others that when they are coming with a suggestion of doing certain development, to be able to rationalize why they are doing or suggesting a certain improvement. Another thing that you can do is that you can bring freedom and ownership to your product squad. You had to promote this because you have to think that it is what basically Agile is promoting all the time. You want to give ownership to the teams to make their own decisions. And this doesn't mean that only is the product manager that makes the decision for the rest of the team. It's also that the rest of the team as well gets to take ownership of the work that they had to deliver. Then you also had to have empathy with your product squad. You have to learn to let people fail. It's not a huge problem when people fail. The most important thing is helping them to learn what they failed. If people learn why they have failed and they are able to adapt, then that's always a good lesson learned. And that's always going to improve the ways of working, the output, the outcome, and so on, and help you be a better team, deliver better products, bring more value to your customers. So be empathetic, let the people in your product squad team and also support them when actually they have failed in those cases so they don't feel left alone. It's going to be very important. And then you had to grow a very healthy and inviting culture within your team. And to the degree that you're able, also bring this to the rest of the company. Culture is a very important aspect that many times is kind of overlooked or ignored in many companies out there, because culture naturally happens. And yes, culture naturally happens, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the best culture out there. So you can promote certain culture within your team that is going to help you have a much more fruitful relationship with them, and actually be able as well to, again, that is going to help you produce better deliveries, outcomes for your customers, and outcomes as well for your business. Another aspect that is going to be very important for you to grow in your career is to start being analytical. I know I said a while ago, but being analytical, being able to use data to back your decisions is going to be very important. I very often see product people not use data in making decisions, and that is a very big problem. Decisions made because of feelings, because of gut, usually they are not very good decisions. And I don't want to sound like a horrible person, but in general, most of our ideas, especially starting with mine, they're not that great. Being able to back ideas based on data is a much more intelligent way of making decisions. Why is data important? Because data is showing us the behavior of our users. Data, for example, is going to show us which parts of a product are more important for our users and which ones are they getting more value from. Being able to use data to understand the behavior of the users is going to be great for you to make those decisions. And yes, many times data is not going to be able to answer all the questions and all the decisions that you had to make. And then you are going to have to potentially find other sources of data. And of course, you always have to remember that you have to talk with your customers, and never talk just with one customer or maybe two customers. You have to understand a little bit better what is the overall sentiment from your customer base. So you have to understand a little bit what these different user personas you have, and how can you get feedback from all of them to be able to back up those decisions. And this is whether you have data or not. Your users are going to be the ones that are going to help you validate the assumptions that you're getting from the data that you have available. And if you want to grow in your career as a product manager, if you want to get better in the ways that you're working to actually be able to bring more value to your company, you also have to remember that the best type of leader out there is probably the servant leader. So you have to remember that everything that you are doing as a product person, and no matter if you're a product person or not, is done by serving others. And serving others doesn't mean that you are a slave to other people. That's a very different story. It's that you are bringing value to those other people. You're serving your customers by bringing solutions to the needs or the problems that they have. Whether it's entertainment, whether it's a company that wants to be more efficient, no matter what it is, you're just bringing them value by serving them. You are serving your team by facilitating the work that they have to do. You're also serving then your business by making your team more efficient and actually bringing those solutions for the customers that the customers are going to be happy to pay for those products because they are actually solving the real needs. So it's very important to have this attitude that you are there also to help growing not just yourself, but also the business, the customers, the team, the products. So one thought that comes to my mind is that many times people have potentially the wrong reasons to start growing their careers. Many times what happens is that people think that, well, I have been in this product manager position for now 2 or 3 years. I had to grow in my career. I want to be a product director. But in reality, nobody kind of cares about your career, as sad as that sounds. What they care is about the business. They care about their problems they have. They care about their team. They care about, as a customer, the problems as I have as a customer. So you have to be able to demonstrate that you are able to bring value in one way or another to these other people, and this can be by some of the means that I talked earlier, then you are going to be able to justify progress and growing in your career. But just because of the fact that you have been long working as a product manager, a product designer, whatnot, that is not enough to grow in your career. So I will recommend that stop thinking about how to grow into your career and stop thinking about how to bring more value to your company, your customers, your product, and your team. That is what is going to help you grow in your career. So I talk about being more data-driven in your decisions, and this is something that I still see many people within product, within different product squads, no matter which role they have, that they are not very actively looking into what kind of data and how can you be more analytical in the decisions that you're making. If you want to learn how can you be a bit more data-driven and more analytical product manager, go check out this video. I will see you in the next one, and remember, stay safe.